Hello there. Just wanted to take a few moments out of a busy day just to touch base with you about the market conditions and how things are now. We're approaching the end of January, coming into February and on towards spring. Down on the Kent coast here, we are achieving, on average, according to the Zoopla data, 98% of asking prices, with the average wait on the market of about 6 to 9 weeks. Um, Obviously, it's still a seller's market, and as such, this means that us agents and you sellers can ask just a little bit more for houses and maybe push the boundaries a wee bit. However, a lot of cases now, there have been huge differences with overvaluing from certain agents. This is not the greatest idea, and it's not the best thing for you selling your house. I know the temptation of getting 50, 60,000 pound more than the next nearest valuation is a good one. However, there are a number of reasons why it's perhaps not such a great idea to go with, and there are reasons that agents do try and overvalue, and I will try and explain to you the reasons for doing this and the reasons why you shouldn't do this and should perhaps set a realistic asking price that and how you can help yourselves to set the price. So some agents will simply overvalue a property just to get you to the market. Simple as that, to justify perhaps their slightly higher fee. They'll sign you up to huge, big, long contracts and then spend the majority of that time badgering you to get your price down to a level that it is achievable to sell, which means you will be on the market for longer. You can hang out for that higher price, and maybe somebody will come through the door that is willing to pay you in excess of market value for your property. I mean, obviously there is a buyer for every single house out there. However, that then leads on to further questions and further problems. So, simply being, one, if it's a cash buyer, they will continue to appraise the market, and if something comes on at a more realistic level or more reasonable level that they feel is right for them, then perhaps they'll switch or try and renegotiate with you. If it's a mortgage buyer, this brings on a whole heap of other issues, in the fact that a surveyor who works for the bank will need to justify the asking price, and if it's a 50, 60,000 pound asking price difference between yours and everything else that's on the market for a comparable property, then simply the bank won't value it up, and then the buyer will not be able to get a mortgage on it, and you'll be back to square one. So not ideal. So perhaps, like I say, look more realistic pricing. Another reason for agents overvaluing is simply that they want your property on the market. They have targets from their head offices, which will mean that they need to list a certain number of properties in a month, regardless of whether they sell or not. It's just simply about a numbers game. Get as many properties on the market as you can, sign those people into long contracts, 20, 25, 30 weeks, then spend that 25, 30 weeks. Majority of big corporate agents will have departments that purely will be targeted on getting sales price reductions on your property, or on any property. So obviously, if they list it higher, then they can get lower reduction or more reductions. You as a seller are signed in. You're stuck for 25, 30, 20 weeks, whatever it may be, and be unable to change. Equally, they can justify a slightly higher fee because they can perhaps say that, we're charging 1.7% of your selling price, but we're going to achieve 50, 60,000 pounds more, which in majority of cases simply will not be the case. As a seller, you can take precautions against overvaluing. Obviously, speak to local agents. You can look at what's on the market and be honest with yourself about the condition of your property. Everybody sees their property as the best in the street. Some cases that is the truth, but other cases it's perhaps not quite so. So be realistic with what condition your property's in, what works need doing. Compare it to other things on the market of a similar size, similar place, in a similar location. I appreciate at the moment, and particularly down where we are in sort of New Romney and on the Marsh, there's a lot of properties that are very, very different. However, you can find something, even if it's something that sold recently. There are various websites. Obviously, you've got Rightmove and Zoopla, but equally you've got things like Street Check is a great one, which will give you all the property prices sold in your road. So you can compare and contrast to those. So you can have some idea before an agent comes out and says to you, yes, we've got lots of buyers looking, and we'll get you a viewing next Saturday. I've got a buyer that will definitely want this. Before you fall into that trap, then have a look, call their bluff a little bit, maybe ask them to sign for a shorter week, or maybe just a one-off viewing. So if they do, if it's not your agent of choice, but they're saying to you, yes, we have a buyer that will buy it at this inflated price, then give them the chance to sell it at that inflated price, but as a one-off viewing, and then you can perhaps look at other agents or other options after that. You can help yourself, as I said, by doing a little bit of research. Another thing you can do is you can ask your valuer when he's there to show you the comparable evidence, because obviously if they're saying your house is worth 50, 60,000 pound more than the next agent, then they must have some sort of comparable evidence of a house comparison that has sold for that sort of money, or can sell for that sort of money. Because, you know, simply put, you just need to be able to prove that your house is worth what they're saying it's worth. If you're more realistic with your pricing and go at a market value or slightly higher than what has been selling, obviously, you will get 3, 4, 5 buyers, viewers looking at your property early on, maybe even more, and then you'll get multiple offers, and those multiple offers will bid each other up. So ultimately, in the end, you will achieve potentially a higher asking price. But this will be justifiable to surveyors, and this will be justifiable to cash buyers. So you may not achieve quite the 50, 60,000 pound that you were hoping for, but you will achieve potentially a bit more than the asking price, and you'll be sold in a quicker time, and you have your choice of buyers. So you may be able to choose somebody who's chain free, somebody who's just a cash buyer, somebody who's looking to invest maybe, or equally somebody who has better agents in their chain, because that has a dramatic effect. So it gives you the options and choices as a seller to pick what's best for you and your onward purchase, because that becomes important also, because if you've got a short chain, that puts you in a better position for making offers on a property. So as a seller, if you do research, obviously you can imagine your buyers will do research as well. So if your property is significantly different in price, higher than others, then they're perhaps not even going to investigate it. There has been various research in the past from Rightmove and Zoopla particularly, obviously the major portals, that states that if a viewer online perceives a property to be overvalued, they'll simply scroll past it. They just will not even look at it. So you could have the best house in the street, but nobody would even consider it because they're perceiving it to be too expensive. We've all done the same thing when we've been shopping on likes of Amazon or those kind of websites, where we'll scroll past something just because it's a couple of pounds more than the one that we've seen before. So, obviously be aware of that. So if you are serious about selling your property and you really want to get moving, then be realistic about your price. Do your research. Ask to see the comparable evidence. Do some comparable research yourself. Look up, Google is a powerful tool. Speak to other agents. Don't get drawn into signing big, long contracts. Don't be greedy with pound signs in your eyes. Just because one agent says it's worth £50,000 more than the other two, or another one, then that's not necessarily the case. Don't be fooled into thinking that they've got a one-off buyer that will buy it at that price, because most agents will have the same buyers. People register at all agencies. Look independent would be my advice, because independent agents aren't targeted on listing numbers. They're not targeted on how many they can get on the market and get reductions. They're simply there to get you the best possible price in the quickest possible time to suit your needs. That's what we try and do. That's what a majority of independent agents try and do.